In this lesson, we'll continue working on the engine of our aircraft. Okay, so in this particular lesson, what I'd like to do is start to build up some of the engine thrusters that we have back here. Now, remembering where we left off in our previous lesson, we have this main engine body. Now, before we start to work on the actual thrusters, we could probably come in here and start to clean some of this up a little bit. You can see we have quite a bit of this geometry that is pushing through and interpenetrating with this main area. So we can go ahead and just remove that since we really don't need to have anything up here anyway. So if I just press the U key on my keyboard, I can come in here and just grab some of these different polygons and go ahead and shift select these polygons back here as well. And go ahead and press my shift key, grab these as well. Just go ahead and delete those out since I really don't need those at all. If I want, I can go ahead and just Alt middle click to grab that entire loop. This was created whenever we built our little extension right down here in our previous lesson. So we can go ahead and just clear that out as well if we want. There we go. Now we don't have to worry about having that geometry sticking through. If you find out that you have a few little protruding areas, that's okay. We can always come in and just tag some of those points. Let's actually come in here and maybe try to do this from the side. Just make sure we actually get all the points in here that we need. And just switch to my scale tool, just the X key on my keyboard, and just push those in just a little bit, just enough to make sure that those aren't pushing through. Okay, so let's start to work on the actual thrusters themselves. So the thrusters are going to be more of a round shape, more of a traditional sort of a rocket thruster type look. So let's start with a polygon primitive, and we'll use a cylinder for this. There we are. So here's our cylinder in here. Now let's start to increase the subdivisions on this. We'll give it something like 12 subdivisions to start with. For the actual base, we'll go ahead and bring that down to 1, so that way we don't have any additional subdivisions on the cap here. And as well, we'll go ahead and take the subdivisions for the V. We'll go ahead and bump that up to something like 3, so that way we can actually have enough points in here to work with to start to get a little bit of curvature. Okay, so let's take this and get this placed back here. So I'll just switch to my side view to make this a little bit easier. Press the C key on my keyboard to switch to my rotate tool. Press and hold shift and rotate that just a even 90 degrees. We'll pull this back toward the back here. There we go. And again, switch to my camera view. Maybe scale that out a little bit. Okay, so just pulling this up, trying to get this sort of shortened out, but at the same time still wide enough for what I need. So once again, maybe just pinch that shut, or pinch that a little bit closer together. There we are, so that should work pretty well. Now let's start to actually shape this sort of the way that we need it. So to start with, I'm going to go ahead and press the U key on my keyboard, select all these polygons, and just start by deleting those out, since I really don't need to have those in there. Now let's begin shaping this again. So this time I'm going to press the I key on my keyboard. There we go, Alt middle click to grab that entire loop. And now we can start to pull this in. This will make sort of the initial shape of our thruster. So this might be a little bit easier to see if I switch to my side view. I'll take these, pull these forward. Okay, and I can press the T key on my keyboard, just tag some of these points. And I'll set this to a COG mode, so that way we can make sure that my components get scaled from their center. There we are, so we can get something sort of like this. Again, just a nice little bit of curvature to that. Now let's start to add a little bit of thickness to this. So once again, press the I key on my keyboard. Softimage, remember, is the last selection that I made. And let's go ahead and press Ctrl D to duplicate these edges. Press the X key on my keyboard, switch to my scale tool, and just scale those in. All right, we'll just maybe push those in a little bit as well. Okay, hit the F key on my keyboard if I need to frame in on that. And just make sure that everything does look the way that it needs to, so that should work just fine. Now with these edges still selected, I'll press Ctrl D once again to duplicate those edges and then just pull those back. Okay, so now that has a little bit of depth to it. Now let's maybe add just a little bit more detail into this edge here. So I'll just press the U key on my keyboard, grab all those polygons, and with those selected, let's go ahead and do just a slight extrusion on those. So let's go to Polymesh, and we'll do extrusion along axis. So again, this is really the exact same thing that we were able to do with the duplicate by pressing Ctrl D. The only difference is that with this extrude property page, we start to have some additional options. So we can start to turn off things like the merging of an object. So if I disable merge and now start to adjust my length, you can see where these polygons are now behaving independently, as opposed to whenever I hit merge, it's just treating them as one solid row of polygons. So let's come in here and maybe start to just increase that length. Maybe start to take our inset, start to inset that a little bit more. There we are, so that way we can start to get, again, just something that is a little bit cleaner. So what I'm trying to do is just get something that pushes in and starts to create just a little bit more of that detail. There we are. And if we need to, just switch to our translate tool, and we can maybe just pull that out a little bit. Okay, so that creates, again, just a little bit more of this detail in here. Now, if we find that this becomes maybe a little bit difficult to see, if we'd like to add maybe a little bit more defined shape to these, what we could do is, again, go back to my polygon selection. With these selected, let's go up to Modify Polymesh, and let's bevel these components. So now I should be able to come in here and start to adjust things like the actual bevel distance. Maybe increase my number of subdivisions here, give that something like 1 subdivision. Should work just fine. And there we go. So just a very, very slight distance, just enough to create a little bit more of a rounded effect with these edges. There we go. That just creates a little bit more definition in there as well. Now when it comes to actually filling this in, we can go ahead and take this, Control D on our keyboard to duplicate this piece of geometry over here. You can move this down and to the side. If we were to press Control D once again, you'll notice that, again, Softimage remembers that transformation, so it's going to continue on. If we want to duplicate a surface without having this transformation applied, instead of pressing Control D, we could do Control Alt D. So if I do, again, Control Alt D, you can see it will duplicate it, but not move that across or remember any kind of transformations. So that just lets me come in and place this now exactly where I want it. Now if I find that maybe these thrusters are a little bit too small, I should be able to just grab each one of these and come in and scale those out. Now you notice it's moving all of them together as though they're one object. What I should be able to do is grab each one of those. If I turn off my COG option, I should be able to grab each one of these and scale them all independently, so that way they're treated as 3 separate objects instead of all being part of the same. There we are. Now one last thing I can do before we wrap up this lesson is maybe add just a little bit more of a lip around here. So let's come back to this surface, this main aircraft body, and again I'd like to add just a little bit more of an inner lip instead of just this sharp, abrupt end where it just really has no thickness to it whatsoever. So let's come in with this surface selected. Let's grab the U knot curve. Nope, that's actually not going to be the right one. We want to grab the V knot curve. Let's grab that one instead. Nope, let's actually grab the isoline. There we are, the V isoline. That's what I want. So let's grab the V isoline and make sure that that is really just right up against that edge. With that in place, let's go to Modify Surface Mesh. And now let's insert the knot curve. Okay, if we needed to at any point, we could still come in and adjust that position of where this is going to get added. But in my case, this is going to be at about 0.997, which is about where I had that line. So that should work. We'll go ahead and close that out. And now, if I were to jump to my side view, right, and press the T key on my keyboard, I should be able to now come in and grab just this very outermost row of points. And with those selected, switch to the X key on my keyboard, make sure it's set to global, and COG. And now I should be able to come in here and just take those points and then scale those inward. I can maybe scale them independently along a couple of these different axes if I need to. And really what I'm trying to do is just add a little bit more thickness to this overall shape. Very good. Now you can see if I tap my spacebar that now we've added just a little bit more thickness in here. And if I need to, I could always come back and maybe tag some of these points independently of each other. Maybe just grab some of these right along the bottom. Now, I switched to my Translate tool, and you can see my Translate tool is all the way back here, even though I have my COG turned on. So what that means is that most likely I have accidentally selected a point up front. You can see there it is right here. So if I just Control-Shift, drag to deselect that, we can now come in and just move that up. And to make this a little bit easier to see, if I were to switch to my wireframe view, come in here and try to find that point that is hidden. Sometimes these can be a little bit tricky to find. So let's see if we can find that. So let's maybe try grabbing this point right up here. I'll press the F key on my keyboard to frame in on that. And what I'm looking for is the point that should be right below that. Actually, I think this is the point that I'm looking for. So let's actually grab that one. Let's go back to our shaded view if we need to. We should be able to grab that and pull this up. So that way we have a little bit more of an even line all the way across here. There we go, very nice. So just a quick little lip right there, again, just to add a little bit more thickness, or the appearance of some thickness. So now that we have this engine thruster in place, what we can start to do now is begin adding some additional details to this engine area. That's what we'll focus on in our next lesson.